When people talk about awakening, they often imagine something dramatic, a sudden burst of light, a mystical experience, a deep peace falling out of nowhere. But the truth is, awakening doesn't begin with magic. It begins with perspective. And today I want to talk about one of the most silent, most powerful, and most misunderstood signs of awakening: the shift from being your mind to becoming the observer of your mind. 1. Awakening begins when you start seeing instead of being pulled. In the past few months, I've gone through a lot of pain, loss, grief, and at the same time, a strange clarity. Pain opened me, love softened me, silence reorganized me, and then one day, I noticed something different. I was no longer drowning inside my thoughts. I was watching them. I was no longer trapped inside my emotions. I was witnessing them. There was still sadness, still longing, still love. But now I was not the storm. I was the sky. This is the moment when awakening begins. 2. What is the observer? The observer is not cold, not detached, not unemotional. The observer is simply the part of you that sees clearly, without being swallowed. It's the part that can say, I notice I'm hurting. I see sadness moving through me. I'm watching this thought arise and fade. You still feel everything, but you are no longer consumed. You finally have space. And in that space, your soul begins to speak. 3. Why pain often awakens the observer. We don't become the observer because we learn a technique, read a book, or meditate perfectly. We become the observer when life becomes too heavy for the old self to hold. Grief breaks the identity. Loss cracks open the heart. Silence removes the noise. Love shows what is real. And suddenly, the mind is no longer the one in control. You are. This is why deep pain often becomes the doorway to awakening. Pain didn't awaken you, but pain weakened the walls, so your soul could finally step in. 4. The observer changes everything. When you enter the observer state, life doesn't suddenly become easy, but it does become clear. You begin to notice. You don't react as quickly. You don't take things personally. You don't drown in emotions. You see patterns you never saw before. You hear the quiet voice beneath the noise. You can feel sadness without collapsing. You can feel love without clinging. You can experience loss without losing yourself. And most importantly, you start remembering who you really are. Because the observer is not a psychological trick. The observer is your soul. 5. You don't practice the observer, you return to it. People ask, can I train myself to be the observer? But you don't train something that is already your natural state. You only remove what covers it. When you feel overwhelmed, you return by noticing, I'm aware of this feeling. When your mind spirals, you return by noticing, I'm watching this thought. When life feels heavy, you return by noticing, something inside me is still calm. The observer is not created. It is remembered, just like awakening. 6. The observer and the path of remembering. You cannot remember who you are if you are fused with your thoughts. You cannot see your soul if you are trapped in your emotions. You cannot understand your life if you are identified with your pain. The observer is the doorway, because once you step into the observer, you begin to see your life, not as a series of events, but as a soul choosing experiences. You see patterns. You see meaning. You see timing. You see synchronicity. You see the intelligence behind everything. You begin to see your own blueprint. And this is when remembering begins. 7. Closing. If you are entering this phase now, if you are watching yourself with new eyes, new distance, new clarity, please know this. You are not becoming distant. You are becoming whole. You're not losing emotion. You're losing the illusion that emotion defines you. You're not disconnecting from life. You're reconnecting with your soul. This is the quietest part of awakening, but also the most powerful, because once you begin to see, you can never go back to being blind. This is the path of remembering, and the observer is the door you just walked through.